On the wind-whipped shores of Lake Michigan, 90-year-old Donald Harris sits in silence, folding a paper boat. Resting on his lap is a charred, blood-stained piece of plywood, pinned with a silver glider badge. This fragment is the only relic he brought home from the Netherlands in September 1944, back when he was a glider pilot in Operation Market Garden, the largest airborne gamble in history. For 80 years, Donald has clutched this wood like a talisman. He remains convinced it was the very piece of the Waco cockpit that shielded him as he dove into a storm of German flak. But a brutal truth took him a lifetime to uncover. This wood isn't a medal of survival. It's the evidence of a blood debt he never settled. He releases the paper boat into the water. It wallows and pitches, mimicking the death throes of his engineless flying coffin over the Overloon sky. The lake wind surges, and the rhythmic slap of waves against the hull suddenly sharpens into the scream of air rushing through shredded canvas. The scent of the lake vanishes. It is replaced by the acrid stench of burning plywood and hydraulic fluid. In a heartbeat, he is no longer an old man by the shore. Donald is in a free fall from 1,000 feet. No engine, no go-around, plunging straight into the mouth of hell. September 17, 1944. A dry, sharp clunk echoes through the air. The tow cable releases. In that instant, every familiar sound vanishes. No more C-47 engine roar, no more vibration. Only the wind whistling over the thin canvas of the Waco CG-4A. At 19, Donald Harris isn't over the burning skies of Holland because he's a crack shot. He's here because the war needs pilots willing to take a one-way ticket. This is Operation Market Garden, a massive Allied gamble to seize strategic bridges and end the war by Christmas. While thousands of paratroopers paint the sky with silk, Donald pilots a flying coffin built of nothing but canvas and thin plywood. Behind his seat sits no passenger row, but a heavy jeep and 4 medics holding their breath as they wait on fate. Before the uniform, Donald was just an Ohio farm boy who dreamed of wings. Now, he's solely responsible for a motorless wooden bird. The sky over Overloon is a chaotic canvas of black smoke and brilliant tracer fire reaching up like claws. As the tow plane's engines fade into the distance, the most terrifying sound Donald has ever heard takes over. In that silence, there are no buttons to restart, no throttles to push. There is only gravity and the cold math of a descent with no go-around. Donald glances over his shoulder at a young medic, likely his own age, clutching a medical bag so hard his knuckles are white. No words are spoken. The wind shrieking through bullet-torn gaps in the canvas is loud enough to swallow any prayer. Donald's hands, born for the plow, now white-knuckle the control yoke with a primal instinct for survival. He knows those lush green fields below aren't as soft as they look from altitude. The Germans have planted Rommel's asparagus, wooden poles rigged with mines and wire, designed to gut any glider that dares to land. Every time the glider shudders, Donald feels it like the final heartbeat of a wounded beast falling into an abyss. This is the climax of silence, where the absence of an engine makes every second feel heavier than an explosion. Donald spots a small farm in the distance. Its red-tiled roof, a stark contrast to the gray smoke of the encroaching battlefield. He remembers the briefings about Dutch civilians, people who endured 4 years of occupation and are now trapped in the crossfire. His mission is simple, and it is brutal. Deliver the jeep and the medical team to the Grosbeak Heights to support the paratroopers holding the bridge. But vicious crosswinds are shoving his fragile craft toward a dense thicket of trees nowhere to be found on the ops map. The men in the back begin to mutter prayers, their voices trembling, drowned by the wind pressing against the fuselage. He realizes he is the only one deciding whether these 6 souls live or die in the next 60 seconds. The glider's wings groan under the stress of a sharp bank as a burst of flak streaks past the cockpit window. Donald can see individual leaves on the treetops, a hyper-real detail signaling the flight is about to end in violence. The Waco's shadow races across the Dutch soil, a dark omen moving faster than the thoughts of the men inside. Donald grinds his teeth, eyes stinging from the wind and the salt of sweat pouring down his face. He aims for a narrow gap between the wooden poles, knowing that if he's off by inches, the plywood will disintegrate into charred, blood-stained shards, leaving no distinction between aircraft and man. In that moment, Donald Harris doesn't feel like a hero. He's just a kid trying to keep a promise, to get the brothers behind him on the ground in one piece. The ground erupts in front of Donald as the Waco dives, the shrieking wind turning into a suffocating pressure that crushes his chest. Thick clusters of Rommel's asparagus loom, black, jagged, and lethal. They are planted to gut any glider that makes it to the turf intact. Donald lets out a silent scream. He wrenches the control yoke with every ounce of strength to dodge a mined pole dead ahead. A piercing shriek echoes as the left wing clips a tree. The canvas rips. The plywood shatters like glass. He white-knuckles the yoke. He takes the direct hit at the cockpit to serve as a human shield for his brothers. The initial impact flings Donald forward. The harness bites into his shoulders with agonizing force as the windshield disintegrates into 1,000 shards. The Waco self-destructs, plowing into the sodden Dutch mud. Through the smoke and grit, Donald catches a flash of a child running across the field. A haunting detail out of place amidst the steel and lead. He struggles to steer the careening wreck, his heart sinking as he realizes he can no longer stop tons of wood and metal from hurtling forward. A violent jolt tosses everything. Donald's left leg lets out a dry snap as it's pinned between the pedal and the mangled nose of the ship. The glider finally grinds to a halt after carving a deep furrow in the earth, leaving behind a silence more terrifying than the crash itself. Blood pours from Donald's forehead, blurring his vision. But his only thought is the men in the back. Anyone still awake? His voice is lost in the acrid stench of fuel and charred, mud-caked plywood. The groans of the medics rising from the wreckage of the Jeep are the only answer. It is a sound that makes him exhale in pained relief. German machine gun fire begins to rake the wreck, punching fresh holes through the canvas skin. The Krauts have spotted them. They are closing the circle around the flying coffin that just dropped from the sky. Donald reaches for the Thompson submachine gun beside his seat, but his leg is clamped in the debris. Every movement feels like 1,000 needles driving into the marrow. A charred, blood-stained fragment of plywood, with his silver glider badge pinned to it, is the very thing digging deep into his calf, anchoring him to the wreck. Just yards outside the shattered cockpit, he spots a tiny blue coat lying motionless beneath a sheared-off wing fragment. Donald realizes his glider didn't just hit the dirt. It hit something that never appeared on any operational map. Amidst the lead plowing into the ground around him, the young pilot finds himself in a new war. A battle against his conscience and a body screaming in agony. He starts spitting lead back at the gray shapes advancing on them, providing cover as the medical team crawls from the wreckage. Every burst of his Thompson is an attempt to drown out the sight of that small blue coat, an image that will haunt him longer than any shrapnel. Splinters fly under enemy fire. Donald snatches up a blood-stained plywood fragment with his silver wings pinned to it. He's no longer a pilot. He's a grunt defending the wounded inside a collapsed fortress of plywood and canvas. The agony in his leg sends him into a delirium. Images of the Lake Michigan shoreline and the Dutch fields begin to bleed into one another. "No, go around," he mutters, the glider pilot's creed now carrying a bitter, crushing weight. The fight is just beginning, but for Donald Harris, The best part of his soul stayed buried forever under that wooden wing. He grips the charred wood in his fist, feeling the sharp edge slice into his palm, swearing that no one else will die on his watch today. The Thompson submachine gun cracks violently in the tight cockpit. Each brass shell casing hits the floor like a countdown for the living. Donald Harris feels the muzzle heat on his face, but it's the cold reality outside the wing that paralyzes him. The lead medic, a man Donald only knows as Doc Miller, crawls forward past the mangled Jeep to reach the pinned pilot. "Artie, we gotta get you out. The Krauts are closing in." He pries at the charred, blood-stained plywood fragment goring Donald's leg. Donald doesn't answer. His eyes are locked on a tiny blue coat lying still under the massive stretch of the shattered left wing. A crushing wave of guilt hits him, sharper than the pain of his shattered bone. He realizes his landing saved his crew, but not everyone on that field. Doc Miller notices Donald's 1,000-yard stare and follows his gaze. "Don't look, Artie. Look at me. We have to keep the rest of these boys alive." Two other medics scramble to patch the wounded inside the wreck, while German rifle fire hammers the canvas skin like rain on a tin roof. Donald grinds his teeth. He shoves the Thompson into Doc's hands, gesturing for him to cover the rear. He draws a trench knife. He begins to cut himself free. The blade saws through muscle and fabric. His own blood soaks into the mud-caked, charred plywood, where the silver wings still shine mockingly amidst the ruin. In a brief lull between volleys, Donald catches a faint, jagged whimper coming from beneath the broken wing. "Oh God!" The child is alive. A frail sound rising through the cordite smoke and the whistle of lead. "Doc, forget me. Get that kid. He's under the port wing." Doc looks at Donald. Then he looks out at the kill zone where death waits for anyone stepping beyond the glider's skeletal protection. A silent sacrifice flickers in the soldiers' eyes. They aren't just fighting for a flag anymore, but for a fading shred of humanity. Defying the incoming fire, Doc Miller lunges out. He uses his own body as a shield for the small Dutch boy trapped under the plywood. Donald lies there, helpless. He watches his brother take lead to pay for the mistake his glider carved into the earth. Doc screams as a round catches him in the shoulder, but he manages to drag the boy into the relative safety of the Waco's shadow. Donald grips the jagged wood. He is absolutely certain it is a piece of the cockpit floor that shattered on impact. When the 82nd Airborne relief finally arrives, Donald is hauled from the cockpit in a semi-conscious haze. Before they haul him away, Donald uses his last bit of strength to pin his silver glider badge to the charred, blood-stained wood. He keeps it not as a trophy of valor, but as a reminder of the razor-thin line between a hero and an accidental killer. Doc Miller lies beside him in the ambulance, a bitter smile on his face. "We're all just fragments falling from the sky, Artie." The fields of Overloon recede through the ambulance glass, leaving a scar on the land and a deeper one in the pilot's soul. That piece of wood became the sole witness to the boy's existence and Doc's redemption in the quiet theater of Donald's mind. War doesn't end when the guns go silent. It just morphs into a low-grade nightmare. War doesn't end when the guns go silent. It just morphs into a low-grade nightmare about the things we broke without meaning to. Donald closes his eyes, his fist clenched around the wood. He feels the cold bite of the silver and the rough grain of the plywood merge into one. Donald Harris returns to his Ohio home in the summer of 1945. He brings a limp in his left leg and a small iron box containing all that remains of the European theater. While the town roars to welcome its airborne heroes with flags and flowers, Donald drifts through the echoes of laughter. Victory Day fireworks don't excite him. They only make him recoil into the shadows of the porch, his hands instinctively searching for the plywood fragment in his pocket. To his family and neighbors, Donald is the brave glider pilot who survived Market Garden. But to himself, he is the man who piloted a wooden coffin into a child's destiny. The scar on his left leg throbs with every change of the season, a brutal reminder of the day the Dutch earth shuddered beneath his fuselage. He hides the charred, blood-stained plywood fragment with his silver glider badge pinned to it deep in his nightstand drawer, beneath letters he never dared send to Doc Miller's family. Every night, when the rural silence smothers the room, Donald pulls the relic out. He traces the charred wood grain with his fingers in search of a forgiveness that never comes. His wife, Martha, asks about the jagged piece of wood many times. Donald only offers a sad smile and says it's just a piece of the ship that brought him home. One afternoon in the family wood shop, the sharp whine of a circular saw transforms into the scream of wind through the Waco's canvas. Donald freezes. Cold sweat slicks his back as the scent of fresh-cut pine triggers the memory of mud-caked plywood, fuel, and blood on the Overloon field. When his 8-year-old son runs into the shop and trips, Donald lunges forward with a terrified shout. In that instant, he didn't see his son. He saw a small blue coat lying motionless beneath a shattered wing. Donald realizes that while the war ended in the newspapers, inside his mind, the Waco is still falling, like Mazdos never truly hitting the ground. He begins spending hours alone by the shores of Lake Michigan, letting the rhythmic slap of the waves drown out the roar of uninvited memories. The plywood fragment grows smooth over the decades, worn down by the friction of his anxious hands. The silver glider badge tarnishes with time, much like his pride. He often wonders about the Dutch boy, whether his scars run as deep as the ones etched into the pilot's soul. When word reaches him that Doc Miller died from complications of his old wounds, Donald withdraws even further. Old comrades gather to swap war stories. Donald avoids them. He cannot speak of the war that still rages in his bedroom every night. The pinned wood fragment is no longer a souvenir. It becomes a small altar for the fallen and the broken. As old age settles in, Donald Harris understands this fragment is the only thread left tying him to the truth. A pilot forever searching for a safe landing zone for his conscience. Donald Harris closes his roadside mailbox on a late afternoon, clutching a frayed envelope from the Netherlands. It was sent by a man named Jan van der Meer, the child from beneath the wing. Inside the letter is an old photograph and a revelation that makes his chest seize. The wood he has cherished for 80 years wasn't a piece of the Waco's cockpit after all. It was, in fact, a shard from a wooden toy wagon, a toy Jan had been playing with on that fateful afternoon when Donald's canvas beast plummeted from the sky. John writes that he retrieved the splinter and the silver badge that had torn from Donald's jacket as he was carried off. Having located Donald through the Veterans Network, John explains he kept it as a link to the man who wrenched the controls to save his life. This truth slams into Donald like a second impact. It crushes the final comfort of believing he was merely holding onto a piece of his own military gear. He looks again at the silver glider badge pinned to the charred wood. It's no longer a symbol of valor. It is a fateful anchor tethering 2 lives shattered by war. Donald suddenly grasps the bitter irony of the pilot's creed: no go-around. In life, there is often no second chance to fix a crooked furrow plowed into foreign soil. The waves of Lake Michigan continue their rhythmic slap. Slap against the shore. But in Donald's mind, the frantic sound of splintering wood from 1944's echoes louder than ever. He wonders if the sincere forgiveness in John's letter actually lifts the burden, or if such grace only makes the wood in his hand feel 1,000 times heavier. His aged eyes blur as he catches his reflection in the tarnished silver of the badge, the image of a pilot eternally trapped in an imperfect landing. The legacy Donald leaves behind isn't the ribbons on a uniform. It is a silence stretching across 2 continents, and a piece of wood shaped like a belated penance. The paper boat he released earlier has finally slipped beneath the surface, just as his youth and peace were forever swallowed by the mud of Overloon. Donald brings a trembling hand to his chest. He feels the slow pulse of a heart exhausted from carrying 8 decades of grief. A sudden cold wind gusts across the lake, carrying that haunted scream of rushing air, a reminder that his flight only truly ends when this breath stops. He sits there, motionless as a statue in the fading twilight, his fist still clenched around the child's wood, as if trying to hold on to the last scrap of his humanity. The world may have forgotten Operation Market Garden, but for Donald Harris, the Waco is still tearing through the sky, forever searching for a landing zone where no one has to get hurt.